Hey everybody, welcome to Rebootleggers. This is a comedy-ish podcast where we reboot things that no one ever wanted to get rebooted. I'm Scott Owen.
I'm Frank Serra.
Joining us once again is friend of the show, Brock Wilbur. Hello, Brock.
Uh-ohs.
At what point, how many appearances does it take before you get upgraded to like occasional co-host? Did we get that in your contract?
Occasional pal. That's always what I've been shooting for. Occasional rebootlegger is the title I have sought for so long.
Since the beginning of the show, Brock has been listening and silently waiting for the moment that we would call him up, only sometimes, because he's very busy. So, Brock,
You're calling me up from the big leagues to the slightly less bigger leagues?
did I say from the big leagues? I mean, even though those words that I said were accidental, it's pretty accurate as you reside in a league much larger than this one.
Oh, I'm just thrilled to be here. I love this show so much, and it's always so much fun.
That's so good to hear. I don't know if you saw this, but when I tweeted at you about the movie you made me watch, someone else replied to it, and I saw that he hosts a podcast that does literally the same thing that this one does.
Sorry, what was it? What is that podcast?
It's called Prequel, Sequel, Remake. And I went and looked at it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's specifically about like making prequels and sequels and reboots that no one wants.
I will tell you that one is a solid hour and a half longer than your podcast.
Okay, so we
Because
do have
everyone on the
differences.
show really scripts something out.
Wow.
Because I did one for them for Tank Girl, and I think I did the sequel. But everyone else, I thought that just the guest had to like script out like 5 pages of stuff. No, everyone that hosts on that show also does so along with the guest. It's the most homework I've ever had for a podcast, and it's a very long podcast.
That sounds awesome.
So if you're real into like what potential takes could come from the film Tank Girl, then yes, there's 2 hours of content for you on that. So it's I really enjoy that about it. I love a show.
Yeah, that sounds
has
cool.
a lot of homework.
I'm glad to know that those do serve different markets, so that we don't have to fight.
We're
them
the
and lose
intro
at some
level.
point. Yeah, we're the first taste, and then we send them on to the harder stuff at prequel, sequel, remake.
It truly is like a graduate level thesis thing, and you guys are like, what if we watch the movie? Which is enough for this one. They should never do an episode about this. We should barely be doing an episode about what we're about to do, and we shouldn't be recording it today. There's a lot of things on the table here.
Yeah, so, audience, we're going to be rebooting the movie Postal, which from the Wikipedia article, the poster featured quotes it as a live-action South Park, which I don't think there are 4 words that make me want to watch a movie less, if we're being honest. And I watched this movie 2 days ago in prep for this, and I don't know that I can ever forgive Brock for making this happen to me, because it's just Brock, do you want to take us through
Yeah.
what is this? For Frank's sake.
So the reason that this has been selected is that I have a book coming out via Boss Fight Books, and Boss Fight Books does these little books, and each book is about 100 pages. A different author takes on a different video game. And I'd pitched a couple that were interesting and fun, but then my writing hero, Nathan Rabin, was like, hey, I'd like to write about the movie Postal, which is based on a video game called Postal. And he's like, I don't play video games. And so the Boss Fight people were like, what if you guys split this book? Brock, you write about the game, and Nathan, you write about the movie. And I was like, a chance to work with the best man from my wedding and my writing hero, yes, please. And then I became immersed in the game, which is fucking nonsense. It is a game from the mid-90s, 97, in which you play ostensibly a person who has a breakdown, or it is difficult to parse the narrative of the game itself because there are interludes and there are also like voices from your bipolar head, but there's also like stuff written in the instruction manual. None of these things agree with each other. But basically the thrust of it is that one day you're a guy that wakes up in your like remote cabin outside of a town, and all the police and all your neighbors and everyone are incredibly well armed, and they all want to murder you. So you have to murder all of them, and you go on a giant murder rampage through a city through these towns that eventually leads in you shooting up a grade school, which is the final moments of the video game. And it is the first time in the game that control of the player is taken away from you. So really, there's nothing you can do. You just have to murder a bunch of kids, and you don't really have a choice in the matter. And this came out like months before Columbine happened.
97.
So the guys behind it, who also consider themselves very much in like the South Park vein of things, have spent the last 2 decades basically whenever there's a school shooting, they have sort of a career in being able to like go on CNN to talk about how video games aren't the problem. But in some ways, video games can be the problem.
Yeah.
And
sometimes they could be.
They had this game, and the Postal 1 is incredibly bleak and like dark and fucked up, and like I rarely see the point of it, and I've written a book on it now, so that's hard. But they did a game that was a follow-up called Postal 2, and in Postal 2, there's dialogue and things added in finally. And it's a first-person shooter set in sort of an open world, and you are a guy who lives with your real bitch of a wife.
Yeah, she's
in a trailer
credited
park.
as the bitch, just really getting into that commentary.
Yeah, and basically and these parts of it kind of work for me. There are elements of it that are genuinely funny. Like it's a lot of like you have sort of a week that the missions are divided into by day, and so your missions on the day one are just to go get like milk from the store, and in the process of trying to just buy milk, not steal it or whatever, in the process of just trying to buy a gallon of milk, like fights break out and everyone's got guns and you have to murder so many people just to get your milk and get home. And like one day you're just trying to return a book to the library, but like all these feminazis come and burn the library down. Like the feminazi thing aside, like there's a lot of this that's like, it's about like the bureaucracy of and our cultural norms of like standing in line and how few people want to do it and how everyone's kind of a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. And so this guy murdering all these people, it doesn't fall onto him. It's more like society forced him into it, and he is doing what is very much borrowing from the movie Falling Down with Michael Douglas. It's just like, okay, at some point, everyone has a breaking point, and they're not wrong. They're probably right. And by the end, you'll be like, well, they're fucking monsters and they have to die, but like, you know, they wanted their McDonald's breakfast sandwich and it's 10:31 and McDonald's won't give them the breakfast sandwich. So yeah, right. You go on a killing spree, which is a very like 90s white guy thing of like, you know, society has turned against me. And it is what has made working on this book so hard, is that like, I keep thinking I'm done. And then in the news, new fucking fragile white guy bullshit pops up with new gun shootings, and the weird part of it is that so much of it is recycling stuff from the 90s, like Jack Thompson, famous video game, anti-video game lawyer.
Guy's still around?
Who is somebody, he's still around. Like he was invited to the White House back in the 90s to talk about whether or not video games were the source of violence instead of guns. And last year, under the Trump administration, after the shooting in the school down in Florida, they called in like him and all of the same people from like the mid-90s meeting to come to the White House to explain how video games were actually the cause of this and not guns. And you're like, you're doing reruns now from 20 years ago from when I'm writing this book about, and it's goddamn brutal because I keep having to go back and be like, I have to amend this chapter and I have to talk about this thing. Anyway, this all builds towards the fact that in 2007, Uwe Boll, the German film director, now American, I suppose, got the rights and made a movie that was an adaptation mostly of Postal 2, but like it's hard to draw the line. It's called Postal. And if you don't know Uwe Boll basically existed for years as the real life incarnation of the film The Producers. Based under German production law, the more a film lost money, the more the government would reimburse it. So him and his investors got rich. And what made Uwe Boll important to like guys of my age who came up on something awful or whatever was that rather than just make bad fucking movies, of which he made a number, he was going out of his way to buy up intellectual property rights to like lesser video games.
Yeah.
Like House of the Dead and stuff, and Alone in the Dark. And so he was just making these perhaps deliberately fucking terrible movie adaptations of games. So gamers were like, no, not my thing, not my beloved like C-list level property.
Not Blood Rain.
No, anything but Blood Rain. And at a certain point, he was making so much money that he was making films with a lot of like giant names in them, which brings us to Postal in 2007. So he's adapting this, and the weird part is that it is maybe the best UV Bull film, because 90% of Bull's films are about like a guy who like snaps one day and then he has to shoot everybody. And he has entire series of films based on IPs just about that. So this being that same sort of thing, it also, in buying the Postal thing, he had to think like, I've got to shoot for more, and this has to be like, I actually have to try for satire instead of just shooting a murder movie and then calling it satire later. And it is the equivalent of the guys that I went to like film school with freshman year who made a film that they thought was South Park level satire, but instead it was just a short film about golf and how women weren't invited and how blacks couldn't be on the course. And then afterwards the teacher was like, we have to talk. And they're like, but it was satire. I was like, but you don't know what that is yet. So you were just racist and sexist and you got it all wrong. So UV Bull gets Postal, and Postal is a surreally pretty close to what it is nearly the best version of what it should be. It's still an atrocious film, but to give it context, almost out of nowhere, like the opening sequence of the film is a comedy bit about the plane crashing into the Twin Towers, and it's basically about the terrorists realizing that they're probably not going to get the virgins in the afterlife, so they decide like, because they're talking to Osama bin Laden, and then they reach a point that they're like, I think he's kind of bullshitting about this. And so their response is to be like, let's not kill ourselves. Let's just go land this plane. But in the process, all the like 400-pound asshole Americans in the cockpit have decided to rush in the plane have decided to rush the cockpit, and they wind up being the cause of the plane crashing into the towers. And it is perhaps an accidentally good like criticism of Americans and how we treat things and like how much shit we make for ourselves. And you're like, the first time I saw it, I was like, the fuck am I looking at? And then you sit down and actually work it out, and you're like, that's maybe it's not good, but it is close to the point. So what follows out of that is a movie about a town where it's a bunch of poor white trash being taken advantage of by each other and by a cult leader played by Dave Foley. And I would recommend that if you haven't, check out Dave Foley's 20-minute divorce podcast story that he has about this. Basically, right before this movie shot, him and his wife divorced, and in Canada, a spouse is automatically entitled to like everything in certain situations. And so Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall basically lost everything he had overnight to his wife via this divorce. And he was like, the fuck am I going to do? And that's when ambulance chaser UV Bull shows up and is like, I want you to be in this movie and then you'll have money to live on. And Dave Foley said yes. So there's like a sequence in this movie where one of my comedy heroes, Dave Foley, just shits on a toilet for like 5-6 minutes straight while you watch him from the side, just with his whole naked body, just shitting on a toilet. His whole self out there. And you're just like, okay, well.
You see, okay, so you do see the penis, but you don't see the.
You don't see the poop.
You don't see the mess.
Blessedly, the mess is not shown. But it is heavily implied, Frank.
It is heavily implied. So it is. Yeah, it is a wildly bad movie, but the plot points of the movie aren't nearly as important as this idea of like nothing in pop culture history, and I think more so than The Matrix, will ever imply this sort of edgelord level of thing. To wit, a bunch of actual goddamn Nazis made sort of their pseudo sequel to Postal a couple of years ago. And it is basically the same game. And both games include the option to, after somebody has been shot, including pedestrians or whatever, you can like shove a gun in their mouth and execute them, make them beg for their life, women, children, whoever. Like it is wildly out of control how edgelord bullshit trenchcoat nonsense this is. And so in talking about what you would do about a reboot here, the ideas of it are very simple. It is the idea that somebody is broken and somebody is doing what is probably a mass shooting. But the way that everyone else reacts to it or why it is happening can fluctuate wildly. Right. And if there was a way to fix this, that would be very interesting to me. And it is, of course, at this moment that we should mention that this episode will be released later because we didn't want to have to reschedule again. But also we're a day or two after yet another mass shooting, and maybe we don't have to mention it because it doesn't matter. And like there's the BoJack Horseman sequence about a movie studio trying to release a movie about a shooting, right? And how they just can't find a time for it, which I think harkens back to the fact that the Carrie reboot movie about all those kids being murdered in their prom, it was like 3 years of them setting dates, and then like the week before each release date, there was some sort of school shooting. They're like, we'll push it back 6 months. Certainly there won't be a shooting in 6 months. But it doesn't feel like we're trying to avoid that. It feels like this is about leaning into it. And it's like, is there a way to talk about this bullshit in a way that fixes it? Perhaps the idea is just
completely enables it, like apparently Postal 2 has done with its sequel.
Yes, and you know it leans very hard into this idea in the 2000s that like everyone thought they were doing satire and no one was doing satire. They were just, you know, you're using and that is actually what is happening now. Like the manifesto of the shooter from the Christchurch, New Zealand thing. His manifesto, people are like, oh, it's all jokes, or it's all like it's irony poisoning or something. It's like, I don't know what we're supposed to do with that. Like, you can't at this point, like, once you've murdered 50 people, it's not a funny bit anymore, bud. Like, I don't know, like, how anyone comes at this. And it's because we laid that we laid the groundwork to be able to just call stuff nothing. Like, oh, don't take that seriously. But we've been not taking it seriously for 20, 30 years now, and look where we are. So,
yeah. When I watched Postal 2, or I guess it's just Postal, I could tell there were those elements of like he's supposed to be making fun of something, because like prior to the climax, like there will be different incidents where somebody shoots up a place, like a cop shoots an old Chinese woman who won't go at a green light, which is a whole other different set of racial stereotypes that we don't need to get into. But he just shoots her with a shotgun and then gets back in his car and nobody reacts or people cheer. Or then the main character is waiting in line at a welfare office, and while everybody is getting shot up by another guy who is upset he had to wait, this guy is crawling around stealing the line numbers out of people's hands who are dead because they have better numbers than him. And so it's just like you can
that's another one that you're like, oh, it's he flew a little too close to the sun. He got so close to like a social commentary element there about, you know, if you explain like that this isn't the fault of this level of society and this is actually rich people turning the poor against each other. Like if you make it about a structural issue or a societal issue, sure. Instead, it just comes off as like the most tasteless fucking bullshit. And you're like, okay, well, you were so close, bud. You nearly got there.
Exactly. So if Dave Foley has, it sounds like he's got a legitimate excuse for why he accepted this movie. Do we know if J.K. Simmons has one? Because he's also in this movie. And the whole time I was watching it, I was like, how did J.K. get into this? You don't have to know that.
It is the Yui Bowl. It basically hits its peak around the film In the Name of the King, a dungeon siege tale, because he has legit Oscar winners in his films at that point moving forward.
How did he do
and
this?
people are like, how do you keep getting these people? And I was like, Sir Ben Kingsley, who's in that, is like,
Oh my God.
well, they flew me to a beautiful European country for 2 weeks and paid me an insane day rate for like 4 days of work. And that's basically how they figured out. Like, J.K. Simmons is basically shot in one location. He probably shot over the course of a day and was paid more for that than he's paid for most movies. Sure, why not?
Yeah, that makes sense. Main character played by I don't remember the actor's name, but I do recognize him as
Zach Ward.
Yeah, okay, Zach Ward. I recognized him as the mean kid from A Christmas Story immediately based on his very rodent-like eyes. I was like, hey, I know that kid. Which was weird. But okay, so Frank, before we get into this, Frank, do you have any questions since you have never seen this and you opted out?
I did. I decided to be the voice of the voice of the people on this one.
Do you want to know what Vern Troyer does in this movie?
First of all, Vern Troyer's in this movie. Again, okay, you're gonna have to tell me now.
He's just pretty much just there to swear a lot and be upset that he's there, and then at the end he gets raped by 1,000 monkeys.
Oh, good. See, those are this is something I don't know. I don't know how common.
The worst part of this is that if you were trying to describe this to a person that hasn't seen this,
it's impossible.
Objectively funny.
You sound insane.
It's so funny. Yeah,
you sound crazy to me.
The story beats might not be funny, but you sound funny because it sounds like you're making this up and that you suck. Like you're the worst person to ever make up a joke.
Absolutely does.
Especially the things you described earlier too are kind of a running problem with satire. Well, I say that I don't think Uwe is necessarily going for satire, but whatever. But the problem is with things like that, where you're talking about how he seems like he's maybe kind of making a point, but he's making it wrong. Where like, people can talk about the points that he's making, but then in the theater, most of those people are just laughing because they like seeing people get blown with guns.
That's the other thing. I am so genuinely confused at like who this movie was for, because like on its at first on its face, it seems like it's for like the hyper conservative, gun obsessed like Republican crowd, but then also they start making fun of George Bush, and so it's like, so wait, who wanted this movie?
Are you just spinning wildly, firing at everybody, metaphorically and in the movie?
This film got its basically its marketing budget and release budget were slashed the day before it was supposed to come out. But I believe in my heart who they thought this was going to get, and I can't fight this because I don't know what it would have been like had I seen it at this point in my life, having just gotten to college or what have you. I think that they were going for the Super Troopers audience, like kids that were just getting to college, finding themselves a little bit via like having an edible, who just wanted to watch the dumbest, worst movie and then quote lines from it. And I do believe that there is an alt universe where this movie does have that sort of cult following. It just didn't get out there.
Yeah,
or
I can
like
see that.
like they thought they were going to be a comedy Tarantino.
Yeah, maybe
with the violence, like.
So the interest. So what's weird? Well, I don't know if it's weird, but so just to fill in a couple more gaps, Frank, this movie features Osama bin Laden is a character with his terrorist cell, and they are trying. Osama bin Laden, played by the soup Nazi from Seinfeld.
Wow.
And he just has a regular. He's just like, he is Osama, but he's also like an actor. Like he's doing a bit every time he releases one of his cave videos. They reveal. And he like regularly calls George Bush on the phone and asks him for help and stuff. And yeah, it's weird.
Okay.
So then,
you're saying something.
Just get
Maybe
ready.
it's just that I want you to have been saying something.
No, just wait.
Problem.
Just you wait for the next part where. So the main character, he has no name. Eventually, he is referred to as the Postal Dude. His uncle, who goes by Uncle Dave, who is Dave Foley, runs a cult, a religious cult, which is he like openly admits to his nephew that this is just a scam that he came up with to get very rich and have sex with beautiful women. He writes his own Bible that is 100% bullshit, but his like his assistant is like a devout believer and ends up betraying him later. But so the main, if it can be called a plot of the film, is that Uncle Dave hasn't been paying taxes for his cult, and instead of just like filing as a religion, he is concerned that he has to pay taxes. So the solution is there is a very popular children's toy, and I guess this was either the time around Furbies or Tickle Me Elmos. This was a thing when like very rare toys was still a thing, like fad toys. And so there's
post Beanie Babies, but there was still this.
Yeah, I guess this was 1997, so Beanie Babies were probably still hot. But so there's this doll, or no, the game was 1997. The movie was 2007, so I don't know what was hot in 2007. But there is a very famous doll called a crotchy doll, which is just a scrotum with a pull string, and it has Vern Troyer's voice, which is why he's in this movie. And the shipment of crotchy dolls has sank from China, and so there's only one shipment that made it through, and it somehow got to a theme park city called Little Germany that Uwe Boll opened in this movie so that he could be in the movie.
The fictional Uwe Boll.
Yeah,
in the movie.
No, the actual Uwe Boll.
Yeah, the actual one, but the fictionalized version. No, I think he's just being him. So the plan is for Uncle Dave and the main character to go and steal all the crotchy dolls because they sell for a lot of money on eBay, and then they'll be very rich. The terrorists
and then
go on,
and then he can pay his taxes like a responsible citizen.
Then he can pay his taxes. That's what he wants to do, is pay his taxes.
Okay,
It is also revealed that the terrorists want the crotchy dolls, but they don't tell you why until they finally get one. Also, throughout the movie, the terrorists are just like weirdly incompetent slapstick guys. There's also one who I'm pretty sure is supposed to be like mentally disabled, and I don't really understand what they're going for with that guy. But they get a hold of some, and it turns out that all the crotchy dolls are somehow smuggling bird flu inside of them.
Oh.
And so the terrorists' plot is to unleash bird flu, and then...
Remember bird flu?
I do remember bird flu.
It's very 2007.
And then it's revealed that Uncle Dave's assistant also wants to release the bird flu because he read in Uncle Dave's Bible that there will be a scourge, an apocalypse that will wipe out everyone but the true believers, and that also a famous small actor will be raped by 1,000 monkeys, which is why he kidnaps Vern Troyer and puts him in a locked room with 1,000 monkeys.
He makes it happen.
Yeah. So
it was in the Bible. Vern Troyer had to be raped by monkeys. It was in the Bible.
It was in Uncle Dave's Bible.
Yet again, like that's saying
something. Something.
Is it just like are we trying to rationalize madness? Do we just want it very badly to mean something?
Are we already Stockholming really hard?
For anyone that's still listening at this point, you can be rest assured that this movie only made 1% of its budget back. It was a complete flop.
One of the biggest of all time.
$150,000 on a $15 million budget.
There's a scene where Uwe Boll is talking about why he, how he funded Little Germany with Nazi gold.
But before we continue, this is still when Uwe Boll was getting German tax credits before they closed the loophole. So him getting 1% back on that is not a failure because he got the other 99% and more from the government. He turned a profit on this. That's what makes him the greatest supervillain of all time. This is why people love to and are entitled to hate him so much.
We could do a whole podcast just on him. So Frank, he this blew my mind. I'm sorry to go off on this other tangent, but I have to talk about this. So as you can expect, Frank, he gets a lot of negative reviews on the internet. Mm-hmm. At one point, he chose 5 people who wrote negative reviews about them and challenged them to boxing matches. And all of them
flew them out.
Is this in real life or in the movie?
In real life. No, in real life.
All of them said yes and fought him, and he beat all of them.
Oh, here's why. none of them bothered to fucking Google him. He was a competitive professional boxer for like a decade and a half.
You don't challenge someone to a contest that you might lose. Like
they all claim, like, so one guy was like, I thought it was going to be a PR stunt. It wasn't. I thought he said we would get like trained. We didn't get trained. And I was like, you said yes to fight a guy because you said mean things about his movie. I don't think you get to have any more excuses. Then later he wrote some like mean stuff about Michael Bay and I forget who, like, he just talked shit about big actors and big directors and challenged them to boxing matches, and they were all like, no, we're not doing that. The last thing that happened to him was his Kickstarter failed for his most recent movie, and then he put out a YouTube video saying fuck everybody for not funding my movie, and now he is a restaurateur. But people fought
he's
him.
Still making stuff. Like he keeps bouncing back. No, it's all for show, and
I'm sure
fun.
it is.
He also follows me on Twitter now because he knows I'm writing the book, even though I'm not writing the movie part of the book about him. So like he'll say things to me about like pictures of my wife or something, and I'm just like, that's fucking weird. But then like he also like posts these things that are like wild, crazy, like I'm gonna fuck up this celebrity, or like anti-vaxxing is the right way to live. But then every time I post a picture of certain cats of mine, he'll write back with the most kind-hearted responses, which is why I can't bear to think
what
of
is
like
going on?
I don't understand. It's like he just has a real sweet spot for both my cats and the cats in my neighborhood. He was participated in the Let Puddin' In campaign on my Twitter, where there was just a cat in the neighborhood named Puddin' that I wouldn't let in, and he just kept being like, Brock, you must let the Puddin' into your house. I was just like, why is UV Bowl weighing in on this? It's so weird for me.
So
what
terrible
dystopia
we might be
did we
drawing
make?
some attention from Uwe Boll with this episode.
So I've read 3 things that I want to read, and this is from Wikipedia. They have sources attached. 1, he apparently has an open boxing invitation out to Quentin Tarantino that he will fight him anytime, which I find amazing.
I think we all want that, right?
Yeah.
I would like to see Quentin Tarantino get the shit beat out of him, yes.
So, number 2, as part of a publicity stunt for Postal, Boll released a video claiming that he is the only genius in this entire business, going on to say, quote, Postal will be way better than all that social critique George Clooney bullshit you get every weekend.
I did read that. Yep. Mm-hmm. And what's
the
third
George Clooney bullshit? I think we all know what that is.
Yeah, Ocean's 11 was way too political.
Way too political.
And the third,
he's always reacting to whatever happened like earlier that day, like at breakfast. Yeah. Like he saw a Clooney movie the night before and was like, that's the problem.
Is he Donald Trump?
Possibly. I don't think that also, he's a doctor, which we know no one knows why he's a doctor. Dr. UV Boll. He just insists on that.
Oh, a doctor of what? Do we know?
Doctorate in literature.
Oh.
It doesn't specify further.
So not a medical doctor, a PhD doctor. Okay. Mm-hmm. What's your third thing, Frank?
God.
We got to start doing a reboot, fellas.
Yeah. My third thing is just something after failed funding of his film Rampage 3 on Kickstarter, Boll posted a video on YouTube telling everyone to, quote, fuck yourself.
Yep, he did that. He was not happy that failed. I
think that movie is still happening, and Rampage is one of those that I was talking about earlier, where he's just like, what if? And it also stars Zach Ward, I believe.
Zach, what are you doing?
In multiple. Well, I don't know. Zach has also edited together his own cut of, I believe the Star Wars prequels, the first 3 into one 2-hour cut. Like Zach Ward does a lot of interesting stuff, and I thought
that was Topher Grace.
They both have.
I've heard that more than one.
So Zach Ward's like a cool guy?
Zach Ward is a very cool guy. I like him.
Interesting.
I too wonder about his choices, but like he winds up here, so I'm like, there's nothing about UV Boll that is not interesting. Let's agree on that. There's something there, and you've got it. You can't just ignore it. You can't just let it sit. You have to be like, I do need answers on some of this.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into this and start like trying to find a movie. So first, are we rebooting the movie, or are we rebooting are we doing like a completely new movie based on the video game where you can pee on people. Because in the video game, you can pee on people, and nobody pees on anybody in this movie. Oh, also, I did want to point out, like, it's interesting to me. So the game, obviously, it's called Postal. It implies, like you said, Brock, this whole, like, anybody's just one bad day away from snapping. I guess whoever made this, somebody read The Killing Joke and thought that was, you know, like most weird edgelord white guys, The Killing Joke is their Bible. Just the idea that one bad day can make anybody snap.
Who could misinterpret the works of Alan Moore to make it seem like they think that murdering people is a good, cool idea?
Right? But so our main character, the Postal dude, in this movie, the only reason he starts shooting people up is because he has now been imprisoned by this cult who just killed his uncle. Like, at this point in the movie, it is not about this guy who has just gone crazy. He actually, like, has kind of a reason to try to live and at least, like, get out of the situation. And then at the end, there's this big shootout in a trailer park where he gets everybody to stop shooting, and even, like, he makes this impassioned speech saying, like, what if we all put down our guns and just hugged each other, because the guns, having all these guns is a huge problem. And then everyone says, no, fuck this, let's shoot him. And then it falls flat. But there's that super weird moment where it's like they came so close to, like, oh, are they actually going to have a commentary on the... Oh, never mind.
I think they did. I think that is the commentary.
I guess that's true, yeah, because then everyone's like, no, fuck you, and then they all shoot him, and then he kills all of them.
Right.
So, what do we want to do here? Should we talk... Is there even... Our first segment is supposed to be talking about what we like and what we want to get rid of. Do we even have a first segment of this show for this episode?
Yeah, I think I think we play a different song and we just say that we're doing this under duress. Our own duress.
Oh my god, I love that so much.
What song should we play, Frank?
Oh, I don't know.
Are we now changing the narrative?
We might need to call Terrence in to consult for some good emo.
Some good emo. Brock's pretty good at the emo. Are we changing the narrative of this podcast so that we are specifically being held under duress by Uwe Boll to make a better movie?
Welcome to Re-Bowl Leggers.
Yes, and that's the title of the episode.
Re-Bowl Leggers. Oh my god, we could just do a whole series of episodes about Uwe Boll movies.
We could, but I think this is going to be it.
Let's specify that.
Yeah, but we needn't. Okay.
I mean, here's the thing. If we are doing this one, we are doing most of them already.
That's true. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we are now doing this under duress to do what, Frank? What are we doing to this?
Oh, what is Are we trying... So here's the thing.
Frank, you got real quiet there, bud.
Do we want to fix it?
I think we want to fix it. What I liked, so Brock, when you originally emailed us about this, one, it was a little scary because we've never tried to make a statement in any of our episodes ever, really. I mean, we have, but the idea of, can we address this, like, toxic edgelord masculinity bullshit in a way that actually, like, asks to fix it, I think that could be, like you said, a very meaningful thing to do with this podcast we make. I just don't know how to get there, because...
Do we want to do, like... Okay. So we either fix the movie, right? Mm-hmm. Or we kind of put a layer of glass over it, and we make a kind of idiocracy where a normal person is thrust into this world where everybody likes the movie Postal.
Or it could a normal person is put into the world of Postal where everyone is getting shot up and no one but him is recognizing...
Like the Frank Grimes episode of The Simpsons.
Yes. No one but him is recognizing, holy shit, why are you all murdering each other? This is horrible. And they're all like, it's just Tuesday.
I like that we're on the verge of, like, what if we drop somebody into our actual world right now where there's just constant shootings, and they don't know that you can't just stop that.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
hey guys,
why
aren't you just stopping
I kind of like that, where it's just like, hey, it's 2019 in America, and there's another school shooting, and only this one person is wondering why this is still happening.
It is basically that movie that's coming out about, like, what if the Beatles never happened, but one guy remembered the Beatles? It's that, but with shootings.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's just jump straight to our setting and I think we got what's our genre? We've got our setting, which is it's 2019 America. People are getting shot up consistently. And it obviously has to be specifically America because as we've seen from this latest shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand, it took one shooting in another country for that country to be like, okay, those guns are banned. So like other places clearly have they have more of a handle on this than America does. So I mean, it has to be set here, right?
Right.
So is there a genre that we can put this movie in?
Is this like a mockumentary now?
Oh, is it?
Oh, interesting.
Could you expand on that, Frank?
Are we making a not murderer?
Making a not
Oh
murderer.
my god.
What? Okay, so I don't think this is what you meant. So Making a Murderer is a documentary about a boy who was framed for murder, correct?
Yes,
So,
except
Frank-
except everyone's pretty sure he did do it, I believe, right?
I thought everyone was pretty sure he did
was
not.
he was framed but very likely guilty, wasn't that?
No, his uncle is pretty clearly the murderer, but
Oh, okay.
he has also been implicated in it, and that's probably not how this should have gone.
Yeah. So if we're going in that direction, how to make a not murderer, Frank? Is it now a crime to not shoot someone in our world? And he did
There
shoot
we go.
someone. He shot someone, and he's being framed for not doing a murder.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Because that could do that. I know we're not supposed to ever address this, but that could be something. That's not something we concerned
Wait,
ourselves
what you're
about.
not supposed to address is when something could work.
On this, I guess on this show, we're not supposed to ask, "Is that anything?" I guess I'm allowed to say, "I think that's something."
Yes, I think that's something too.
That could be good. So, Frank, did you want to take that anywhere else on your own?
Let's walk forward hand in hand.
We all have to move at the same speed here, or we don't move at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it so? First of all, so it's now a mockumentary. I like this. So it's gonna be, I mean, it's gonna be a little satirical, I think, but also like it's about people who murder people. Okay, so I guess I think we've got the setting and genre. Are there people we want to cast in this? Is this something we would want to do to people?
I
don't think this falls so far outside of our normal format. I don't know how
unless
to
we
apply
think
our
of
segment.
something hilarious. I don't want to implicate any real world individuals. I don't think.
Brock, would you like to star in this movie as the man who didn't do a killing?
I would like to star, but I'd like to be credited as Chris Pratt.
Okay, we could do that. We could do Chris Pratt with like one T or two T's, but like
it's Chris.
Christ
Whoa.
Pratt.
Christ Pratt. I think it's Crisp Rat. Okay, so Brock is our sad sap who did not do a murder, but he should have. It turns out.
Like, what if it's a blundered, like, it's a robbery at, like, a gas station, and, like, somebody else just beat me to it, and I was like, but I was supposed to, oh no.
Oh, okay. What, yeah, so you were supposed to do the robbery, or you were supposed to shoot the robber? Because I think that is such a bullshit common
that's good.
narrative.
There we are.
It's such a bullshit common narrative right now. Every time there's a shooting, there's some collection of just fucking assholes who are like, I would have run towards the shooting, or all those people who say, the solution is to arm teachers. So it was your crime that you saw a crime happening and
this
you
movie
didn't
isn't even
kill
called
the
Postal
guy.
anymore. It's called A Good Guy with a Gun.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Good guy with a gun. Postal : good guy with a gun.
Which ostensibly it is. Postal is, yes, probably.
Yes. So the crime here is that Chris Pratt did not, he saw a crime happening and he did not pull out his concealed carry gun and murder a person.
Sorry, did you say concealed? That's not the world we're creating.
Sorry, his open carry weapon.
Yeah.
His open carry.
That he does not need a license for.
Yeah, he does not need a, well.
I guess we should be careful because I don't want to like stray into just mocking libertarians.
Why not?
Okay.
It was nice that we said that in unison. That makes me feel better. Walk hand in hand through this episode. It's the only way we can do it.
Take our hands, Frank. Okay, so because I mean,
So let me be clear. So there's a robbery.
Mm-hmm.
Our main
Yes.
character has the chance to shoot to kill.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't do it.
He shoots but doesn't kill, or somebody else beats him to it,
I think,
and it's like a reverse Samaritan law.
I think he just doesn't do anything. I don't even think anybody beats him to it because I think the problem is that the guy doing the crime gets away, which is in this world. If you
But the
don't,
police come for our main character, not
the police come for the
criminals.
main character because security cameras caught him with a gun. He's clearly open carrying a gun, and he does not draw it and kill the criminal.
Okay.
Oh, I do enjoy the Samaritan law reversal thing here. Yes, that's very interesting to me.
Yes.
It's your responsibility to deal with this, and you didn't.
Right. You did
Right.
not murder this man. Like
It's a very Starship Troopers level of citizenship requirement.
Yes. That's very good. Okay.
And so I think we know that we're firmly dealing in the realm of satire, and everyone should be able to see it, and there can be no mistakes on that. So that's good for me.
For some reason, it just popped into my head where we could have like a weird fugitive-esque scene where he says, "I did kill that guy," and the guy chasing him says, "I don't care." I don't know. I don't think that's anything, but for some reason, that dumb joke popped in my head.
It's not the worst. But in this sequence, it would be like, I killed the guy. It's like, no, you didn't, because I am that guy. Like,
Oh. He
That-
is a cop.
He's a cop.
The guy robbing the gas station was a cop.
He was Tommy Lee Jones. Okay, so the cops do come for him. So is this now just like a thrilling legal drama, like, or is it going to be like an action satire where he does escape, and now because of this reverse Samaritan law, because he is a known criminal, the entire population of the United States is obligated by law to kill him if they see him.
that is very interesting to me. And my other idea is that like either that situation creates a situation where we have created the actual Postal reboot here under a satire situation where he has to just keep killing people against his will in order to stay alive because of the law, or is it more interesting if he continues to stick by his metaphorical guns and
not kill people?
Everyone is trying to kill him, but he has to try to go the entire movie without killing anybody else. Like, if you were going to reboot Postal and try to fix the problem of it, maybe that one's more interesting. But also the look on the face of a guy that is a mass killer who
doesn't want to
hates
be.
being in that situation is perhaps what this game and movie were trying to do from the start, and just had no ability to do so.
I kind of like that because so he originally got into this situation because of this weird reverse Samaritan law, and now he's forced to continue killing to stay alive because of a reverse stand your ground law, where if you feel threatened, you are required to shoot back. Otherwise, you will get arrested. So now he is under threat by all these people, and he is obligated by law to shoot them. Otherwise, they will kill him. Because if you don't draw your gun when someone threatens you, then you're not an American, and you get deported or convicted or whatever.
Yes.
So he is just so unhappy with having to do this, just be shooting people. I think I would. I want to. So there's a scene, Frank, in the original Postal movie where everyone starts shooting each other at Little Germany, and it's just this montage of children getting shot and falling down in weird comedic ways. I kind of don't want to do that in this movie.
No. I kind of had
what the big bad in that sequence that UV Bull is shooting and who eventually shoots his dick off is Desi, the guy who created Postal.
The guy who created
being
Postal
in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, they all talked about when we interviewed them, which I went to spend a night with the Postal creators at their house in Arizona.
Oh, man.
And it is a majority of my book. It is just because like on the drive down, I was listening. They do a podcast now because of course they do.
Yeah.
And on the way down,
They're
I was
white guys.
listening to their
They got a
podcast,
podcast.
and they were. It was this
the
long
rules.
tirade about how like trans people aren't people, and then about how everyone in Hollywood is like part of a pedophile sex ring. And
good.
that was the first 5 minutes of this episode, and I turned it off and I called my wife and I was like, hey, I'm still heading to Arizona. She's like, you left like 30 minutes ago. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, I got to ask again, what are you hoping to get from this? And I was like, I really don't know. And to be fair, like their stories were interesting. And I saw like a lot of stuff about somebody who went the wrong way. For example, Desi, the guy that created this, on the walls of his house, he has medals and plaques that were given to him by Barbara Bush for creating educational software because his company basically made Sesame Street games. They were the first to make like all these PBS educational games, and he just got so fucking tired of making Big Bird teaches typing that he took a couple of people and he's like, I want to make a game where I just do the opposite of this. And that's where Postal came from. And I was like, okay, that's an origin story I get. Yeah. You just like fucking hated your day job, even though you were like meeting with the president and his wife so you could get awards for this stuff. And then you become this. But anyway, they both talked about, there is this sequence where it's just a bunch of children mowed down. And they were there that day on the set, and they were standing with the parents of the kids that were the actors.
Oh my God.
Who didn't fully understand what they'd signed up for. And then it became sort of having to restrain them from rushing the set because they were not expecting to see their kids massacred in such a way. And apparently Uwe Boll was like sitting at like the monitor and just sort of like cackling, and no one else was making any sounds. And they went up afterwards and like, what the fuck was that? And he was like, look at how funny it is. And like not a single person on the crew, no one involved in it. No one was like, that's funny. And actively said to him, like, that's not funny. No part of that is funny. He's like, well, you fuckers don't get it. Yeah. And it's just like, okay, well more so than anything, like there's the 9/11 sequence at the beginning that after enough time becomes like annoyingly
like South Parky.
It's clever, but it's not that clever, but you're still like, okay, that's better than the rest of this. And then there's this scene
that maybe saying,
I see why you think it's funny.
Yeah.
And I've tried to play the mental gymnastics on this one too, where I am like, is there any part of it that can be funny that a bunch of kids are massacred with a gun in this movie about how it is a pretty good movie about how fucked America is when you take a step back. It is made by a foreigner, and it is about our problems and like how he doesn't have to participate in them unless he chooses to. Like there are readings of this that are interesting, but there is no fucking interesting reading of this scene. It's just cinematic cruelty in the middle of what is supposed to be a slapstick film. And the fact that it is played for slapstick laughs by him and only him makes it so much fucking worse. It is this gigantic anchor where the rest of this you can be like, this is one of the worst films I've ever seen, but at least it's pretty light. Like it doesn't, like there's no emotional weight to anything. Yes. And then this happens and you're like, you're an actual criminal who should go to the Hague for what you have chosen to show me here. Yep. It is so fucked up.
Yep, it's so fucked up. And then it's immediately followed with a remote news anchor, Frank, who has now pulled all the children's bodies and arranged them specifically so she can stand in the middle of them and pretend to cry about them on camera. Like it is,
oh boy,
it is bleak and dismal.
That part,
the scene where they
that part feels real. That feels like what our news media does. That one, it is. So that is the weird twist at the end. Is like, if that was all to build to that. If you cut the scene where the children are killed and then you just showed a news anchor trying to pile bodies up to show like how important she is and how her feelings matter more than the dead children, shit, it's really close to saying something. Every time here, it's just Icarus and flying too close, and then you're like, it doesn't get all the way. If he'd touched the sun, there'd be something to celebrate here, and there isn't.
It's also that scene where they introduce the guy who created Postal is really, so he's wearing a crotchy mascot suit, Frank, and all he does, he takes off the head and he just goes, Uwe, what have you done to my video game Postal? And then it freeze frames and it writes underneath him his name and says creator of the game Postal. Like it is just a slap in the face, hey, this is the guy who did it.
It reads like, and very much was, hey, this was in the contract.
Yeah, exactly. I think I think for our movie, it's the way I want to go is just every child looks like a miniature guy from the Hurt Locker. Just every child is just dressed up in these just huge bodysuits.
Like, all right, get on the school bus, honey.
Right, and everybody just looks like this tiny Hurt Locker person.
Oh, that's so good.
Just
that
in the
we've
background.
reached the point that
like
we've
whenever.
normalized everything. It's very RoboCop, which I like.
Exactly.
Like every kid has a full body.
Yeah.
Yes, because
like when you go outside, you take a hat, whatever. Like when you go to school, you take your body armor.
I would say for the point of, I guess I still don't want to do this because I don't want to be showing kids like shooting and getting murdered. I think
I like better if it's just like in the movie in the background. It's just whenever there's a kid, it's just like wait.
No, yeah, I want to do the little Hurt Locker thing. I was gonna say, except maybe now, like once they turn 13, they can have guns because that's where like they want it to. That's where like the NRA wants it to be at, where there's a certain point where kids can have guns. Like getting pissed that.
Oh, I think the best part of this movie would be like the idea is that these kids are, trained in guns from like 5, 6, 7. Like, they've got not full on guns, but they train up. So like the best scene in this movie so far that I can imagine is that somebody that we don't like, some sort of bad guy, walks into a grade school, and a grade school or a high school has actually become the most dangerous place for a bad guy in the entire country because every fucking kid has a gun and is great at it, and he's just like Swiss cheesed like so quickly.
Yep,
like,
I could see that.
Kids taking back guns—that's a level of satire that I can work with here. I love that.
I do love that as well. I think all the kids are still all like fully decked out in body armor. There could be a scene where the guy like kicks open a classroom door and then 30 kids just pull out guns and light him up, and then
So we're going for kind of an anticlimactic end, right? So he's desperate. He's out of bullets completely. Runs into a school to hide, and then is just executed.
That's great.
Oh, okay. You're saying it happens to the main guy. Okay, I do like that. I was thinking it could just be like happening to some random guy in like an establishing shot of a movie.
Yeah, I want it to happen to a bad guy. I don't want the kids to kill our hero. That seems
I think it happens. I think it's like the first shot of the movie. We're establishing like, oh fuck, this is another school shooting. He kicks open the door, and then all the children destroy him.
I hate how much that sucks and how much I love it because that means it's
and
done
then
something right.
A teacher just picks the wall up off the phone and says like, one more.
Yeah, hey, we got it. We got another one. Just come, or just like she just picks up. She just like, hey, can you send the janitor? And then she goes back to
clean up on aisle 9.
Yeah, and then she just goes back to teaching like spelling or whatever, like whatever grade we decide these kids are. She goes back to like their.
I do genuinely I love the idea of like a Postal reboot movie that opens with a guy with an AK-47 walking into a grade school, and you do think like, fuck, what is this? Fuck,
right, you
this
think
is
fuck,
bad. Fuck, please don't make me watch this.
Right,
and then it's just him getting fucking annihilated by children. Because that's the country that we have evolved into in 2019. And you're still thinking... That seems aware.
You're still thinking, fuck, what did I just watch? But God. Like, okay, I didn't watch what I thought was going to be... The thing I thought was coming is worse than what I just saw.
The relief you would feel?
The relief you would feel from that
The relief you would feel? You'd be like, oh my God, he was... Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You feel this weird amount of relief of, okay, I did not see what I thought was coming, but then you also still have that, what the fuck did I just see? Like, what is going on?
And I do love the thrust that we've come up with here as a good shorthand for what we're doing in the entirety of this, which is simply, what if the NRA got everything that they wanted?
Yes,
like, what
exactly.
if that is the thrust for this movie?
Right. Okay, so back to the quote unquote present of our movie. Our hero he's fleeing from the town, but he's being required to, against his will, he has to murder people to do literally anything he wants, because otherwise they will kill him. How do we get him down from this tree that we have lit on fire? Where are we going from here with this movie? I'm inviting the two of you.
You're actually asking.
I'm actually asking you.
I'm now.
We've come to a fork in the road with our hands held, and I don't know which fork to take. But I also don't know what the fork, what each, like, I have no idea where we're going from here. Do we need to have like a B plot, like police officer narrative? Is there someone who's trying to change the laws? Does that happen? Like, what happens to our hero to get him out of this terrible mess? Or like is it just he is allowed to keep living his life as long as he adheres by these rules? So like they're
Does
like
he meet? I kind of like. Well, I don't know if we want to get like depressing with it. I guess, but it would be less depressing. Than
I
him
think
getting
it's
shot
too
and
late
killed.
for that.
But so like, what if his initial making the news for not killing spurned a like
a job?
uprising of like peaceful protest people who are then horrified to learn that he basically killed his way across the US to find them.
Oh, so they were all like, hell yeah, somebody who didn't kill, and
Yeah.
he's trying to get to them, and then he gets to them and they're like, no?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe. That could be I don't hate that.
I do like the idea of it starting a national like conversation, because it's what we've done here is that we've created the reverse of what's happening now.
They're showing
where
his
we need-
report cards on CNN and talking about
Yeah.
whatever.
It takes somebody to start the movement to change this thing, and that's what we're doing now in the same direction, but like we're not up against the same hill. If we can show that one guy not murdering somebody could reverse
Makes a
gun
difference,
legislation in this weird NRA future, then it makes the stakes of right now seem a lot more accomplishable, which is a weirdly positive like message that I think would be worth sending.
So I guess maybe the climax of this film is him finally not murder, like him once again choosing to not murder someone. Like he tried to do it by the rules that he was told after he got in trouble for not murdering someone, and he ultimately decides like, I can't keep murdering people. Is that how we end the movie? I think too in this there's like there can be a scene that's basically like how, you know, there's car chase scenes on the news where it's just like a helicopter and we're watching police chase a car, but now it's a helicopter watching a guy just run through shooting people, and the news commentators are talking about it like it's just a boring car chase. But so like is that I like what you said, Brock, where it's showing a person making a difference by not murdering in a world where it is the NRA's paradise. That makes that can make our world seem a lot like the world we want a lot more achievable.
Right.
So I kind of like that being. Now does he get to survive choosing not to murder someone, or does he die but then his death becomes like the beginning of that movement to, hey, let's stop murdering constantly? What works better is my question to both of you.
Look, so we're rebooting Postal. Well, let's step back to that. Postal
let's talk about
is the
that,
idea
yeah.
of like one day a guy can be pushed too far. If the thrust here is that we've applied everything nationwide, then one day it is a country that is pushed too far, and maybe it is this guy in this movement that like everyone just takes a step back and like looks at their children in full body armor, and looks at like the structure of things, and it's just. I would love to see a movie that the big like recognizing moment at the end for everybody was everyone just being quiet for like 5 minutes and just sort of looking around and being like, the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And I know it happened slowly and over a series of decades, but what are we doing?
Right. Yeah, I like
and then
that a lot.
everyone just starts working back from there.
I like that a lot. I do, and I specifically want it to be that exact. Like, the fuck just happened? That'll be that'll be perfect. Okay, and then the NRA gets defunded, and then we get the world we actually want.
Right.
And then is that the end of the movie? Did we finish this? I'm always caught
I'm
off
happy
guard
with
when we
the way
finish a
that
reboot.
Yeah.
Right.
I was
think
like,
that's
did we end
the
it?
end?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Frank, do you have any final thoughts for this movie? I know I like to ask you for your
I
final
guess
thoughts.
not.
Weird how we
weird.
really blew through all the murder shooting content. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think we're going to end it there then. This was certainly a different episode. Every episode with Brock is a different episode, and I think always for the better. But this one is also a different episode in many other ways. Also for the better, I think. I think it is important for us to have these discussions, not in the, like, we can still I'm not going to try to preach on this. I think we just let this stay the way it was.
I will. I think, I mean, it's where I have to live in having written a book now about it.
Sure, yeah.
Is that in talking to these guys about their intentions, they're like, this was just the first game, which is dark and heartless. They were like, it's supposed to be funny, and just no one got that. And the number of times I had to ask them over various glasses of whiskey, like, but why would anyone get that? And what was supposed to be funny is a difficult conversation. And it is, I admit, it is very difficult to explain comedy, but it is also that, like, they did a remaster of the game in, like, 2011. And the remaster of the first Postal, which is a much more fun game all around, because in the first game, it is a clunky, hard, difficult thing, and the remake is at least sort of arcadey and fun. But the final level in that game, you're not shooting up a school. You walk into a church, sort of, and then you dig your own grave, and then you die in it, which is an idea. I don't know where it goes, but it's not forcing the player to shoot up a grade school, which makes me think that the grade school was never a joke. But there is a reflection in the success of that game, and all the things that other games that it has given birth to, and future sequels and movies and stuff, that is like, it is, I think, deliberately supposed to be a satire of mass shooting culture, but no one takes it that way. And if no one takes your joke as satire, then it's not satire.
Right.
And what it has to say about the rest, like, I don't know anyone that plays Postal 3 as a fun spoof on shooting, or why anyone would play a spoof game on gun culture for fun. That's just not what it is.
Right.
So the reflection it gives us, I think, is very interesting and is worth looking at. And also, when this book was announced as part of the Boss Fight book series, the number of people, including people that I think have known me for years, who were like, fuck you, you can't write a book about that. And to the point that our editor had to go to Twitter and be like, hey, did you know that bad art deserves criticism too? And that if we don't criticize bad art, we don't avoid its mistakes and stuff. And, like, I know everything else we've published has been like, this is a book about growing up playing this game with my dad and us learning to love each other and stuff. Right. And, like, here's me writing a book about a game that I did not play before starting the book and do not enjoy. There's a lot about it that I feel like my final chapter is almost apologetic, where I'm like, I hope I condemned everything enough, while also pointing out the ideas I found interesting. But it still sucks. Let's agree that it sucks.
Right.
And
exactly.
The fact that it exists sucks, but also its success is the part that sucks the most. It isn't the most successful game, but the fact that it still has, like, a huge following and, like, deserves its creators having a podcast to talk about their political opinions in 2019. Like, there's so much that's so weird. Yeah. And it's not on a couple of guys from Arizona, and it's not on me. It's on us. And so as the further that we dip into, especially in light of the recent shooting, the more that gamer culture informs this sort of thing, the more that I think it's bleeding into something that is very much about, for example, in this shooting, it was live streamed, and a YouTuber's subscriptions were referenced and things like that. Yep. We have reached the point that we are in an era of internet shootings for the internet, and media shootings based on forms of the media. And so I also fully defend the idea that we did this reboot today. I know it's so goddamn weird and so much less fun than any episode that we would have, but I think the thing that we came up with is actually, like, shockingly annoyingly good and speaks to what I think all three of us wanted to have to say here today. This was a really good episode, and I really appreciate you guys having me on and for treating it the way that you treated it. I know we were about to bail on it because we're like, we can't make a funny joke movie about this thing, and we really didn't. We actually made a satire about it that I think would be worth watching. So
yeah, cool. So when is this book out? Where can people get it, and when? Because especially the part, like, I was always probably gonna read it, but then specifically when you brought up how you had to go meet those guys and interview them, I was like, oh shit, now I really want to read this. So when's that happening?
It is the worst sleepover of all time. You can buy the book. You can pre-order it on Amazon right now for like $14. So whenever it comes out, it'll get there. It should be like a month or two out probably. Cool. But you can also go to bossfightbooks.com. And there you can buy bundles that are like, here, we'll mail you the physical book, but also like the e-reader version of it or the PDF or whatever will come your way, which I've bought that for a lot of other boss fight books. Cause like I'll hit a section where I'm like, I want to send these 3 paragraphs to somebody. And then I'm on the couch trying to take a picture of it with my phone and it doesn't really work. So I don't know. That's a couple of months out here. And me and Nathan are both really proud of it. And it is certainly the only book to be split into talking about both a movie and a game and neither of the authors writing about it enjoy it. So that's it's going to be an odd book in the series. No one else will ever do this for many reasons. So
Amazon says it comes out next week. So that'll be interesting to see. When
it does not.
Great. Good to know. All right, well, thank you everybody so much for listening. That's going to do it for our episode. If you like the show, you can follow us. Nope, not follow us. You can follow us on Twitter if you want. We do have a Twitter at Rebootleggers, but please give us a good rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That helps us out so much. And tell your friends about the show. Brock, thank you so much again for coming on. We always love to have you. I do think, like you said, I think we made something very unique here. I hope I'm not just sounding like some asshole white guy who thinks that his opinions are amazing, but we just so rarely do episodes of substance.
It's an opinion on asshole white guys, so I think that we're right. We're supposed to fix our own. This isn't on any other group to fix. I promise.
Fair enough. I agree 100%. That's on us. So we don't. I feel like this is an exciting thing to do. An episode of some more weight every once in a while. Brock, where can people find your other work aside from this book?
I'm at Brock Wilbur on Twitter, brockwilbur.com, and then just search my name on iTunes. I have a whole bunch of podcasts, one about emo music, one that's a positivity, darkness podcast, one about board games, one about Star Wars, and I have one with my wife that's just about politics in Missouri. So,
fuck yeah. Are you taking requests to shut down any more cults at this point in your life?
I am taking requests in that people will send me long emails in the middle of the night about something that their nephew is involved in.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm, that weird guilt that you have from a stranger that you're not doing enough yet. So kind of, we'll see.
Okay. Sorry I brought that up. That sounds rough. Well,
see you next time, guys. We'll do the sacrament together and really make each other miserable.
Yeah, for real. Thanks everybody for listening. Until next time, I'm Scott Owen.
I'm Frank Serra.
And Brock, can you give our listeners a password so they can get in next week?
Reload.
Pretty good.